thank you so much for joining us today. You both have traveled to incredible places in the name of science. So to kick off this episode, I was hoping you would be able to share the wildest experience that you have had or encountered in the field.
Do you want to start?
I'll let you go.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much, Ali, for having us. It's great to be here. There's so many studies and stories, and it's hard to pick one, but let's go with, imagine this. This is the last day of a 2-week expedition in the tropics. We're in Costa Rica along the Caribbean coast. We're studying these palm swamp ecosystems, and we have to get there on a little boat. We met this captain. He's a friend of a friend, paid him in cash. There's 15 of us, including a lot of students, so like the pressure is on. He needs to dump us essentially in this jungle that I don't know if anybody has ever walked there. There's no path, and we're going down on a canal on this boat, and we can't dock anywhere. There's no beach. Just imagine overhanging the densest vegetation you've ever seen, like all over the canal. And we're like, all right, well, let's just stop here. And as we're trying to get off the boat and we're, losing ground and trying to just even step onto the marsh, our boat captain reminds us of the jaguars that are in the area. And at the same time, it starts pouring rain and all the students are exhausted from this 2-week trip. And we just decide to go ahead and go for this trek. And, we marched like half a mile in an hour kind of thing, and we have to machete our way through this jungle, and usually the fastest walkers are in the front, but the problem is the slowest ones are also the ones that have to step into the deeper and deepening mud. And so by the end of that trip, everybody was at least knee, if not hip, if not armpit high in the mud, or I should say armpit deep in the mud, and just laughing about it all because we, were like so wet, so dirty, and we got some good samples. So I suppose that's the good part. And the other good part is the captain was waiting for us after hours of us being lost in the jungle, because there's always that fear of like, is this guy still gonna be there? And he was. So that was one of those experiences that was pretty intense.
We love a happy ending afterward. That's
Yeah.
great. Did you see a jaguar?
No. Also a happy thing.
Well, thanks again for having us. It's really fun to be here with Julie and to share some of the stories from the field. For me, I was having a hard time deciding on one, so I may give you two. But the first that came to mind, we were funded by a National Science Foundation grant in 2016 to work on the highest Andean summits. This was up at 21,000 feet to dig snow pits and sample for snow water equivalent and snow density, temperature, and also scout sites for potential future ice coring expeditions, and bring back samples for isotope and chemical analysis from the snowpack. So one of the mountains we had chosen was Ancouma, which is the third highest peak in Bolivia, and it's actually very close to where I'd grown up as a kid too. And so it's a mountain that had always fascinated me. It's a pretty straightforward route to get up there, even though it's high. And so we had a team of 6 that were going to climb this and all work together and dig a snow pit at the summit. And again, it's high, and there's some challenging sections and places going up, through an ice fall. But overall, it's a relatively straightforward peak. So we thought we'd get up to just over 20,000 feet, and the normal route was not in. There had been a huge crevasse that opened up on the ridge, which meant that the only way to get to the summit was to go straight up the face, which was 70 to 80 degrees. And we were with Anton. This is a joint colleague that Julie knows. And Anton gets to the base of that and realizes, we talk through the options, say, hey, the route's not in. And he says, okay, I'm stopping here. There's no technical climbing for me. And the other team members, out of former grad student from university with us too, they didn't have the skills to go up above that either. And so I went on just with our 2 local guides, and uh, it was a very challenging climb going up with water ice on the face because of the melting. Um, but it was the descent that was the most difficult part because this is so high up. It's just under 21,000 feet, and there was no sun on the face when we went up, and it was super cold. But down climbing, we couldn't rappel it because it was a diagonal kind of traverse, and so down climbing this on water ice, very hard water ice, was just incredibly taxing. And then the group that we had left behind that didn't continue to go, they were near hypothermic because it was below zero. Sun hadn't risen yet, but was able to get to the summit and dig the snow pit and collect the samples and come back down. But that was one of the most challenging and difficult days that I've had in the mountains. And then it may have been surpassed by our 2019 expedition to Mount Everest, which was a 2-month expedition. We spent considerable amount of time in the death zone above 26,000 feet, and I'll tell some more stories from that in a bit. But those are the two that came to mind that were very challenging.